All right, we're going to go and get going here. So thanks everyone for coming. I'm Anthony Ione. Welcome to Mile High Cornhole, aka MHC, and the first ever formal cornhole clinic in Colorado, and maybe even nationwide. I don't think we've had something on a scale like this with 91 people today. MHC is the first club in the state and the most talent rich. However, we're seeing talent popping up from all over. The game is absolutely exploding. Just to give you an idea, Mile High Cornhole was one club 3 years ago in the state and is now up to 9 or 10. With that growth, there's been an explosion of interest in, how do I develop myself into being an advanced player? How do I become a pro is a big one coming our way too. And I'll have to give a shout out to BJ on this one. He basically said, hey, how can we take the knowledge that MHC has and the skill that we have and share that with everybody and help feed that development and contribute to the growth? So that's what brought us here today. So just kind of a quick run through of what we're going to go through today. We're going to go through rules and objectives. Mike Carwin's going to come out here and drop some bag knowledge on us. There's a whole nother world of knowledge in bags. We're going to go through pitch mechanics and techniques, kind of working through how to, the proper way to toss a bag or what we see as trends amongst other baggers. We're going to bring out some of our other ACL pros and top players, and we're going to go through scenarios and basically how you would strategically attack those. So we'll set up a couple scenarios on the board, and those guys will say, hey, this is the way that I would attack that setup, what shot I would select, and then how to complete that shot. So we'll bring those guys out and do that. And then if we have time, we'll go into statistics. So one of the biggest things now with the apps, we're capturing a lot of data, and there's a lot of acronyms out there, along with the numbers and what the numbers mean. And we'll kind of go through what we're seeing at the pro level and then down, so we can kind of all get a feel of where we're at. So starting off with rules and objectives, we'll start with the equipment. So on the boards are 2 foot by 4 foot with a 6-inch hole, and these are controlled with really tight tolerances. So all the way at the competitive level, we're down into the fractions of an inch. Everything has to fit within that specification. The slope is extremely important. 12 inches high off the back. So that's gonna, if you're playing in someone's backyard and that's off, you're gonna have a completely different speed. It'll play really fast, it'll play really slow. If we go on to the bags, again, extremely controlled. Every bag is 6 inches by 6 inches, 1 pound or 16 ounces, controlled within fractions of an ounce and controlled within fractions of an inch. So the new thing this year is the stamp bags. If you have, and Mike will probably go into more of this, but if you see a stamp on here, that just means that supplier has proven themselves from a quality perspective, and you're going to get a really consistent bag every time. Nothing that's square or rectangular or heavy or kind of off in dimensions. The court itself, we're spread out 27 inches front to front. Thank you. 27 feet front to front. I'm going to kind of just walk through the box itself. So on the left and right hand side, you'll have what we call a pitcher's box. And you can move anywhere within this box to throw your bag. You'll have 3 total feet of step out. You could have a toe in there. So if you're someone that really wants to get a big angle, like Harry Stoltzfus or something like that, you'll get really far out there. You can go as far back as 4 feet, which is the back of the board. That is your box. The front is going to be controlled by the foul line. And just to kind of talk about this one a little bit, and we'll talk MHC rules and then we'll talk ACL because we share the same rules. And it gets a little controversial, but you are allowed to carry your momentum across the line as long as you release the bag before you complete the step. That is a legal throw. Now, for the new people out here, if you have that within your throw, if you kind of have that forward momentum and you show up to a tournament, just ask what the rule is because it's not consistent everywhere. Our top player in the state, Gino DeLisa, has to deal with this when he moves from place to place. He has to modify his throw depending on what the rules are. So to start the game, we've kind of gone through the court itself. We're ready to fire up a game. You'll go through a coin toss or a bag flip. Even at the pro level, you'll see guys pull quarters out of their pocket. If you want to look like you know what you're doing, just grab a bag, spin that sucker on the board. Every bag's going to have an exposed seam. Whichever side that points to, that's the person that's going to go first. That's typically what we see within the competitive level. You want to go first. There's an advantage there. You're going to have first bag to either take hole control. If you put a block or something in the way, you're also going to have first opportunity to go in the hole, kind of put pressure on the other person, so you definitely want to win the toss. In singles and in doubles, you get to choose side. Now I'll talk a little bit about doubles, but you get to choose, in addition to going first, you get to pick side of the board. In singles, it doesn't matter as much, right? Because what we call an outside arm where the board is on my inside, and an inside arm where your arm is over the board. In singles, you're going to be trading that off as you move back and forth. In doubles, it might be a little bit more strategic what side you're on. Maybe you have two right-handed players and you know, it just sets up to where you would want to be on a certain inside or outside arm. That is your choice. On that second choice, for the doubles team, you can pick inside, outside arm, or, which I haven't seen implemented yet, you could pick the matchup. So you can say, hey, we won the toss, we want to go first, and I'm going to throw against you, and my partner's going to throw against that guy. You can actually pick the matchups. Just for our new people out there, I've actually never seen that done, so if you kind of go around like throwing that out there, it might be a little off, but hey, that's within you won the toss, that's within what you can do, so you can kind of do that. All right, so we're into gameplay. It's customary to go down and back before you get started. When you travel around the country and you play in different places, it's completely different. If you go down in the south or even us, the speed between Colorado and Florida could be completely different. So it's kind of customary to go down and back and just feel the boards and get used to what the elements or the speed that you're dealing with. And then you would rotate bags. So I'm going to go first. I'll throw my bag. You throw yours. I throw mine. You keep going until you're through with all 8 bags. You would stay in your lane. So we've thrown all of our bags. We're going to go to the other side. There's no crossing over. Your partner can't stand cross from you. You're always in your lane, singles and doubles. It doesn't matter. When you get to the other side, the scorer is going to go first. So if you scored in that round, you would get first bag coming back the other way. It's a race to 21, so we don't do bust rule. If you're in your backyard and you're in a case of beer, you know, a bust rule is kind of fun. But when you're doing competitive level cornhole, bust rule doesn't tell you who the best player is. So we don't do bust rule. It's cancellation style scoring. So you're going to have 3 points in the hole, 1 on the board, and 0 on the ground, obviously. No 2 points for like leaning in the hole or anything like that, just 0, 1, 3, and that cancellation style scoring. So if I score a 6 and you score an 8, we'll subtract those out. You get 2 for that round, and then we move on from there. Timing in a match. There is no end to a game. I've seen hour-long singles matches where you just go back and forth. There is some timing elements, though, related to throwing time. This is an important one. You have 20 seconds to throw a bag. This is competitive level play, obviously. So you can't kind of burn the clock for a couple minutes trying to ice someone out. The moment that bag stops, your 20-second clock starts. You got to throw that bag within 20 seconds. 3-second rule is real important. Kevin Warner's familiar with this one at Worlds. You have to let a bag settle on the board before you go down and pick it up. So if a bag slides up and it's kind of going over the rim of the hole, you can't reach down and grab it real quick before it falls. You have to let that thing settle completely and then wait 3 seconds. A good example with Kevin Warner out at Worlds, that bag creeped up there and I think it was like 19 or 18. It was at the end of the game. Kevin stepped back, the bag was still moving. The guy reached down and picked it up. So that pissed Kevin off and he threw an airmail to win it in the next round. Drag bag, or he went over a slick side game changer to win it. Timeouts. Yeah. Timeouts. In singles, you get 2 90-second timeouts, and those are real important. There's going to be times when you're 30 feet away from the hole, you can't see what's going on down there. Take a timeout. You get 2 of those, you go down, see what you got to deal with, and then you can select your shot off of that. In doubles, you're going to get the same 90-second timeout, but 1. Because you're going to have a partner down there who can kind of see what's going on. He's going to communicate back to you. But you get 1 of those timeouts in doubles. So those are the basic highlights of the rules. That's probably about 15% of the rule book. Just wanted to touch on the high-level stuff. All right, so next up, we're going to bring out Mike Carwin. He's going to drop some knowledge on us on bags. Mike Carwin could probably talk for 2 hours, but he's got 5 to 7 minutes. So he'll just hit the highlights. Feel free to get with him afterwards. He's got a wealth of knowledge on bags, so he'll drop that on us.
Anyway, I'm Mike Carwin. I run the Colorado Cornhole page, and I also own corntrickscornhole.com. We sell all a lot of the bags you're going to see here today. But first thing, I want to thank you, Anthony, for putting this together. Thank you, Anthony and BJ. Really unique idea. I don't think it's ever been done before. So yeah, kudos to you guys. But yeah, so I mean, we mainly at Corn Tricks, we offer all cornhole and Reynolds right now. We've got NOLA bags on there too. They've got a lot of unique stuff. But how many players are like brand new, never been to a tournament, don't even own a set of bags? Anybody? You, sir. You. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, come stand over here for me real quick. I'll need you guys in a little bit. You don't have to do anything, just hang out. All right, so let me tell you guys what, okay, everybody's going over there. All right, so when I started playing cornhole back in, I don't even know what was it, like 2009? Yeah, ish. Yeah, we started organizing events back in like 13. We had the first state championship in 14. I won that one, thank you. That was back when I used to win. Back when I used to win, we played with suede. This is an all cornhole slide right. It's got your traditional stick and then slick side. This is the slide right material. Very popular material, this slide right stuff. You're gonna see it, every bag maker pretty much has their version of this. All right, and then you got, this is suede. You guys can touch this, pass this around. You got your stick and your slick. And this, for so many years, this is how bags were. It was stick and slick. Then ACL came along. They said everybody can bring their own bags to tournaments. All right. So then all these bag makers started making different bags. Players started realizing there's different materials out there than these two, right? So then, Reynolds came out with this one. This is their most popular bag. This is the Pro Advantage. It's got a similar slick side, not the same exactly, but very similar. And then the back side is called Carpet. All right. Everybody refers to this as the original Carpet bag. Was actually the Pro Edge Speed, but I don't have any of those. But that's the Pro Advantage. Feel that, guys? This is a higher level bag. This Carpet, it's not friendly if you don't throw it flat. Now later on, you're going to see Tay and Kirk throw these bags religiously. They're gonna purposely not throw it flat to get it to do what they want it to do. All right, it's going to be cool. But so this is the most common Reynolds bag, Pro Advantage. Now they do little variations, little pivots on these bags. They've got the same Carpet bag Reynolds does on the Patriot and the Pro X. All right, these are just different models. They have the same Carpet side. All right, it's just a different fast side. Go ahead and take one of those. You take that one. Take that one. Take that one. All right, so like the Pro X, it has a really fast side that people are starting with this speed scale now. It's like a 9 out of 10. It's the same as the Game Changer. The Game Changer is all that 9 material, but it's got a patch of suede in the middle. All right, and this is patented to just all cornhole. So they're the only ones that can put this patch on the bag. They've got a patent on it. But yeah, check these out. These are probably the most popular bag out and has been for about 2 years. All right. So check those guys out. And then, Reynolds, they put a lot of pivots on all their bags. Like this one is the Pro Advantage Victory. All right, so it's got Advantage material on one side and Victory on the other. It's another bag that they offer. It's got this linen. It's really soft. Feel that. These are all brand new bags, by the way. They get broken down. And notice they all do have the Pro stamp that Anthony was talking about. That means they're approved for ACL play, okay? A lot of them, the older bags don't have the stamp, but they're still allowed for the next, I don't know, year or two, okay? And then, let's see, what else do we got? I don't have any of the NOLA bags, but they're really creative with their fabrics. They're all available on the website, corntrickscornhole.com. But I think that concludes my, my segment. I'm gonna turn it back to Anthony. He's the 2019 state champion.
Yeah.
But that's all I got.
Thanks, Mike. All right. Next, we're going to go through pitch mechanics. A lot of good information here. I'm kind of a geek, and I've watched a lot of guys throw, especially at the higher level, and picking up on some of the trends that they do and consolidating it into this here. So we're going to kind of go through what we call the base. And that's everything below the waist, and then we'll go through the uppers and everything above the waist. So we'll kind of start at the bottom and work our way down. So at the base, we have what we call a step or a no step. This is going to be the first big decision you make in cornhole. And basically with a step, you see someone kind of coming forward to throw like a softball pitch or bowling. And then a stationary guy is just that. He's just going to keep his feet completely still and minimize all that movement. For this, really, whatever's comfortable. So at the pro level, Nationals #1 winner was Damon Dennis. He stepped. Over 60-year-old man, he stepped. #2, Nationals #2, another stepper, Steven Bernasette. And then if you look at a guy like Jamie Graham, all last year completely rolled the ACL. He didn't step. and then he comes out this year stepping. I don't know. I mean, it's hard to keep up with. So for this, it's like whatever's comfortable. Really what's going to be important is what's going on at your release. So if you're a no stepper, where do I put my feet? What we're seeing is most baggers are pretty much heel to toe or within a half a shoe distance of heel to toe. So they're pretty much in this area here. You don't see a whole lot of this going on. There are a few exceptions. There's going to be exception with everything. Jimmy McGuffin, Sean Short, you know, these guys will get way out here, but it's very few. Most guys are going to be pretty much heel to toe. Your weight distribution, you're going to be 50-50. And this is, again, pretty common amongst the pros. Not a whole lot of people out on the front of their foot like this, you know, where almost all their weight's up here. Although another state champion, Kevin Warner, that is his throw. He's found success in that. But on the majority, you're going to be pretty much 50-50 weight distribution. You're not going to see any significant amount of dips in the knees and raises in the ankles. So definitely none of this stuff here. And none of these explosions out of the calves. You really see a lot of calmness in the base from your top level pros. There's not a whole lot going on down here. And then you see kind of a clean transition of weight forward to that front foot. So, you know, any jerking motion or kind of like kicking up really high in the back, you do see it at the pro level, but it's not very common. So it's a real quiet in the base. Moving to the uppers, in your backswing, we'll kind of go through the motion of a swing. The most important thing about your backswing is at some point, your arm is straight. You don't see a whole lot of like chicken wings or bent arms out here to the side like this. You're definitely going to have a straight arm at some point, and there are extremes on this. Like a Justin Stranger, he'll actually come forward, straighten it at the top, and then start his backswing all the way to like an Isidro, who's pretty bent all the way to the back and then snaps it at the very back. So you see the full range, but at some point you're going to be straight armed, and it's real important that your elbow is behind your forward swing. So again, nothing kind of out to the side. As you're coming forward, that elbow is behind your throw, kind of coming forward there. How deep should my backswing be? The majority of baggers are going to be right behind their pocket, and these are elite baggers. So you're basically going to be behind this back pocket, somewhere in this zone here. Again, another exception, James Baldwin, one of the best players, he's a Hall of Famer. He'll barely get to his pocket and then snap it off there, all the way to Jay Rubin and maybe a Megan Maupin, who will go as far as your shoulder can go. But a high percentage of elite baggers are going to start their forward swing somewhere just behind the back pocket. Chest and hips, it's real important. Now we're ready to come forward. We've reached our backswing. As we're coming forward, you want your chest and your hips square to the board. So basically everything is facing this hole. You don't want to kind of be out to the side, presenting yourself off to the side and shooting that way. It's very important to be squared up. And then you're going to minimize shoulder dips and bends at the knee, or at the waist, sorry. So any of these kind of moves here, you want to try and avoid that. Again, there's always exceptions. We see that at the pro level from like a Len Hyatt, who really gets down there, and then any significant dips at the shoulder. So if you're coming through and you kind of get down over here, over your side, you really want to stay square and keep your chest square to the board. Now you will have a dip lower than your other shoulder because you are relaxing these muscles to throw. So your shoulder will be a little lower, your throwing shoulder will be a little lower than your non-throwing shoulder, but definitely avoid kind of coming out over the side like that. Grips and releases. So there's two main types of grips, at least that we've discovered now, and it kind of grows from there. The first one it's just kind of your classic style grip. I know a lot of our new people out here, and myself, the first time you picked up a bag, it's probably the way that you gripped it. But basically, you're balancing the bag on your fingertips where you get kind of an even amount of resin on both sides. Very important to note, the corners are pointing down to the ground, and then your thumb pressing kind of center of the bag-ish. And if you kind of were to push your thumb through, you're basically contacting your pointer or your middle finger. You're kind of in this region here. These fingers are free to move, and maybe even this third one if you're doing a pointer. The second bag grip is called the butterfly grip. So in a butterfly grip, and you'll see the difference with the corners, you're kind of standing it up tall or taller so that the beads can actually go to the bottom, and everything kind of falls into the curled section of your fingers. And your fingers are going to be lower on the bag, meaning I'm in the bottom corner, I kind of have material up here to the top, and that's real important to, some of the cool stuff like Tay Harris can do to manipulate bags. He needs to be in the bottom to be able to control angles. So once you get all that bead kind of down in there, there's a really hard thumb press in the middle of the bag, and then what happens is your corners pop up. as opposed to the other one where they were down. And if you stand it up, it just looks like the wings of a butterfly, so that's kind of where the name came from. Basically, the difference between the grips, with this grip, like I was saying, you're able to manipulate the bag both tilts. Tilts are your left and rights, and then your loading, which is fronts and backs. And for guys that can perform English on the board and make bags do like magic with rolling and fancy stuff like that, typically those guys are throwing a butterfly grip. That classic style grip, you'll see that with just your guys that are just shooting holes. You know, the Damon Dennises and the Stephen Bernasets, the two guys that won the first nationals, they throw a classic style grip, and they're doing nothing but throwing holes all day. They don't need to manipulate bags, so they don't need something like the butterfly grip. On the release, so to release a bag, and it doesn't matter if you're butterfly or classic, we have what we call a finger release or a finger blast. And basically what's going on is, in both grips, underneath, you kind of have a fist pack or a rolled up bag in the bottom, and on release, you're extending those fingers, and you can kind of see the bag kick out to my left. That's a counterclockwise rotation for a lefty. And then on the right, you would have obviously the opposite direction, and when you kick those fingers out, you get the clockwise rotation. That is a major contributor to your rotation. There's a second contributor, but that is one of the main ones. So that blast is really going to get your bag starting to kind of come out flat and rotate. All right, throwing a flat bag. So the secret to throwing a flat bag is what we're going to call fist to palm. So if I were going to grip a bag, and it doesn't matter, both grips, it's the same. If I were to move that bag without doing anything, what you end up having is kind of this fist style grip. And again, that's where I was saying your finger's kind of on your pointer or middle finger. So what you're doing is you're going from a fist position to a palm position. And the palm position is going to be palm up, and your fingers are going to be finger blasting or pointing towards the hole. So this bar, my little tool here, kind of helps exaggerate that. But if I were going to fist pack this bar, I really want my hand positioned to where the bar is facing the hole. If I'm closed off like this is a closed style grip where your knuckles are facing the board, and you typically see that with people that think like they have to frisbee, or they have to kind of get extra rotation to frisbee a bag in to get it to spin. You absolutely don't need to do that. If you're finger blasting and you're going from wrist to palm, that movement right there is plenty enough to get that bag to rotate. If you're in the opposite direction, where my bar is now pointing off to the left, this is an open style grip where your open palm is facing the hole. I'd favor this one over a closed grip. You're actually going to have a lot more straight bags to the hole here, but the idea is that you're lined up to where that bar is facing the hole, and when you come up, this is the part where it's really hard, and it takes years and years to do this, and it's strength and memory. You need to rotate that bar to where it's perpendicular to the hole, and then my fingers finger blast to the hole. And that's going to give you a nice flat bag coming out. So kind of just to give you a demonstration, if a new person came out with that style grip and didn't go through the flat piece, this is typically this is real characteristic of all of us when we started. You have what you call a weak style release. And what's happening is the key is, where is your pinky located? If your pinky is low, my bag is going to stand up tall like a sail. It's going to stand up like this. If your bag is the other direction, where the pinky is level, again, the pinky is, everything's going to pivot around your thumb to pointer. Everything pivots around there. If I can get my pinky to rotate up flat, that's where you're going to get your flat bag. So same idea. Coming through, if I get my pinky up high, that bag's going to be flat. And then someone like Tay Harris and these guys that are doing these fancy cut bags and roll bags, they're going to the extreme, and they're going to a strong side release, because it takes a lot of strength to get that pinky really high, and you actually invert the bag in the opposite direction, and you can get cutting motion around bags and also rolls, and that's where that stuff comes into play. All right, we're going to switch gears. Next up, we're going to do what we call shot scenarios, the strategy, basically lay out some bags on the board. Do you have a question?
As far as your wrist?
Your wrist. So what I'd like to say on wrists is that your wrist is actually flat to your arm. So what you see amongst both baggers is these knuckles are in plane to your arm. So you don't see a whole lot of kicking up like this, and you see a lot of guys doing this, I think because they think like they need to like rotate it, but you really want a flush palm here, because once you translate to a flat palm, you still want to be flat here. So if you're bent, eventually you have to kind of lay it down, and that's just going to jack up your bag flight, and that's where you see a lot of that wobble. All right, so Yeti Irwan's going to come out first. For those that don't know Yeti, ACL Pro and a national champion this year. Very decorated within Mile High Cornhole. So Yeti's going to come out and demonstrate the step out and the scenario on that.
Okay, thank you, Anthony. So one of my favorite bag to throw, I like to step out, and Anthony mentioned earlier, like in the beginning, my husband, Harry Stoltzfus is my husband, so I kind of learned it from him to step out. So the first scenario I'm going to demonstrate is if you have a blocker bag right in front of the hole like that. If you target your bag like right on the side of this bag, or like this bag. So it will just, but you do want your bag to just sit there, and then it will just nudge it this way, and then both your bags should be like together like this. And sometimes it's also intimidate the blocker, the first blocker, and then sometimes he ended up being like here and might even push your back a little bit into the hole. So that's one scenario.
All right, so Yeti's going to throw it on a demonstration for us. So what she was saying is you have an opponent's blocker here in the middle, in this case the yellow bag. She's going to do her step out, full box or half box, depending on how much space you need to get around. She's going to come in with a slick style bag. So let's keep in mind Yeti is a slick style player, and we'll show a little bit later what a stick style guy might do a little bit different than what Yeti's doing here. But she's saying make your spot right about here. That's going to be your target spot, and you'll kind of bully the bag out of the way and either share hole control or take hole control with a bully off the side.
The other scenario that I like to show is if you have a blocker bag a little bit right here, like your opponent from that side, you have a bag right here. If you step out, you can easily go in between this. And if you go slick side in between this bag will stop your back, and your bag will go in without dragging this back.
Yeti's going to demonstrate use of a back bumper on a step out to get around a blocker. Now again, Yeti's a slick styles player, so she's going to flip that bag over to slick side. That's going to do a couple things. It's going to maximize hole friendliness, so she just needs to kind of clip the side of the hole to find her way in. And also it's easier to push or redirect a slick style bag, which this back bumper will have to do. First, we're going to demonstrate a miss, which is very common with this style of throw because you are coming in slick side. But if you don't step out enough or your profile is too low for a slick style bag, you'll actually blow through the back bumper, leaving yourself on the back of the hole or off the board. Now here we're going to see Yeti does get inside that bumper enough to use it and find the hole and leave the blocker on the hole. Now in this case, she actually contacted the blocker, pulling it closer to the hole, which could be an advantage for her opponent. Typically with these back bumpers, you can find your way around that blocker off of the bumper slick side without touching that front side bumper.
All right, thank you, Yeti. And that's the least Yeti's ever stepped out in a game.
All right, next up we're going to bring out Tay Harris. Tay Harris is also an ACL Pro. Tay's making a lot of noise on the pro scene this year. He had a signature win against Matt Guy. If you don't know who Matt Guy is, it's like the Michael Jordan of cornhole. And he's just winning a bunch of tournaments, and they're talking about him a lot within the media of the game. So we're real excited about what Tay Harris is doing.
Yeah, Tay.
So all I'm here to talk about is pretty much the roll bag. And so most of the people that I've seen throwing roll bags pretty much throw it the same way. And that's with you're trying to get it face up and just a hair of like a right tilt. So it's gonna fly through the air kind of like this. And then say for example, you're trying to roll over something like that. You just try to land kind of right here and it'll hit, flop, and go over. Pretty much, I would just start out with, most people hold the bag just flat pretty much. I would just raise it up and over exaggerate your wrist.
So like Tay was saying, you'll have a mess of bags in the front with an opponent's bag on the back, and with an exaggerated wrist or finished pinky high, your bag will come in back loaded. slightly tilted to your throwing hand side, giving you rolling characteristics where the bag will roll over and find the hole.
And then kind of in the same lines of Yeti with the little, using the bags as bumpers. I like to, if somebody throws their first bag or they're trying to throw blockers and it's like a little off center, you can just use a bully bag, push it out the way, and take control of the whole board. Kind of like this. If you're trying to push it out the way, I like aiming a little bit inside of the bag. You're gonna have to throw it a little bit harder, but it just prevents it from kicking off to the side. You just have to make sure your line's right. And so you'd come in kind of like this, exactly like that.
Tay's going to demonstrate use of the exaggerated wrist in a cutting style motion to take hole control over a blocker. Now what this does is the bag is coming in tilted throwing hand side. See the bag tilted here. And as it comes in and approaches the board, it has right to left movement. As a right-handed player, Tay's going to bully that bag out of the way and take hole control, which is we call a box out, similar to what you see in basketball. But his bag that he's throwing will take hole control, moving the blocker out of the way. Now this is typically a better strategy bag with your second or third bag, forcing your opponent to make a decision while you still have a fourth bag in your hand to later push or airmail. All right, next up is going to be Kirk. For our new people out there, Kirk is a great example. He's come from the bottom to the top in the shortest amount of time. He's barely been playing. He keeps showing up on the podium. He's about to win a singles event here, and he's really developed a good kind of stop and go game, and he's going to demonstrate how you can cut bags.
Got it. Yeah. Yep. All right. Yeah, guys. I've only been playing. For those of you who are wondering, like I've just started. I can't get to that level. My first game was actually an ABC draw game, and I got paired up with Anthony. I was so nervous because my buddy tells me, he's like, oh man, he was state champion last year. I was like, well, dude, then he wants to win this thing. He doesn't just want to mess around. Why am I playing with him? So anyway, these guys are awesome, right? If you have questions, definitely ask away. They will help out. They'll send you back replies to messages. Like I send books to Anthony, right? And he's just like, oh yeah, here's what I'm thinking about. So let's talk about the cutter bag real quick. For me, the cutter bag, the reason that I throw it is when I started throwing, it was a pretty natural bag for me. When I would release a bag, my bag would fly through the air nose down, so that carpet side in the front would catch, automatically bringing my bag from the right to the left. I throw with my right hand. So it was a natural bag for me to throw. And what I was trying to do over the last year or so was really refine it. And actually now, if I get nervous or if my bags are sort of sliding all over the place, I will throw open board cutter bags, because it's like a golf, right? If I've got a slice, if I've got a fade, I can take away one side of the hole. With that cutter bag, I can take away misses on the right side and just worry about cutting that bag into the hole, even open board. So the way I do it, right? I think about grip, I think about trajectory, and I think about the target of where I want to throw the bag. So my grip, Anthony talked about that butterfly grip, right? For me, I throw a little bit of a modified butterfly. So instead of the bag sitting in my fingers like this, the way I try to sit the bag, the edge of the bag is going to go across my palm. So if you guys can see that, right? It's kind of ending up in the heel of my palm. So a little bit flatter that way. I still have about 60% of the beads in my hand. I'll bring that thumb across the middle so you get a little bit of that butterfly like Anthony showed. And then my grip, Anthony was talking about middle finger and or pointer. I like the middle finger, right? So I'm holding the bag, corner of the bag and the heel of my palm, across the middle, and then kind of gripping right there in middle fingers. The target or the trajectory then I'm gonna throw. Lower bag with this cut, and actually, before I even get there, if I throw a flat bag, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. For the cut, I'm gonna start with kind of my normal neutral bag and tilt my hand to the right. I wanna cut this bag right to left. I'm gonna tilt my hand a little bit and start that bag off in about a 45 degrees in the air. Two shots that I'm gonna take with this. One, if I get a blocker and I'm throwing hand up the middle, that blocker's there and I can see some daylight on the right side. On my throwing hand side, I'm gonna throw the cutter. The other option is if there's a blocker and a bag like Yeti showed, right, as a bumper behind it on the right side, I'm definitely throwing a cutter. My target and my trajectory, lower bag flight is going to cut harder, higher bag flight if I just want to get this to roll over a little bit and sit on the hole. Last thing is target. I'm going to try to pick a spot on the board and throw my bag to it. So in this case, if this bag is up here, off to the left a little bit, they've thrown a blocker, it's kind of kicked out to my left. My target is basically going to be the dot on that board. If I can make the target as small as possible, it gives me the best chance to hit this cutter.
Earlier, Yeti was showing us how to get around a blocker on a step out with a slick style game. Here, we're going to highlight a similar setup, beginning around with a stick style game. Like Kirk mentioned, with a tilt of the wrist, finishing pinky high, the bag comes out at a 45-degree angle, see here. And on impact, changing direction, cutting to the non-throwing hand around the blocker, finding the hole. This is a more high-risk shot. However, if successful, you can find the hole without touching the blocker. In a case where that is your bag as the blocker, by not touching it, you're still impeding your opponent's bag coming in, still leaving the blocker in play. If it's your own opponent's bag, then you're forcing them to make the high-risk shot, difficult shot of pushing their own bag in. Both Kirk and Yeti talked about this setup with a blocker off center of the hole with a bumper on the backside. Yeti showed us how to use a step out when outside arm. Here, we're highlighting the use of the cutter bag when inside arm. Again, with the tilted wrist, releasing pinky high, the bag will cut to the non-throwing side. The bumper on the backside in this case assisted the thrown bag to the hole.
If I throw that bag a little bit higher in the air, that becomes a bit of a cutter roll as well. So even if that bag sits on the hole or sits on the bag, it's good to me. So that's my cutter bag. Any more questions, definitely grab us afterwards.
Good job, Kirk.
Alrighty, all I'm mainly talking about is airmails here. It's the highest risk, highest reward shot in all of cornhole. If you're feeling them, you're probably going to win. If you're not feeling them, you're probably not going to win. So, truly. And if you're not feeling them, don't throw them. You could win a whole cornhole game without throwing any airmails. And there's a lot of scenarios that entice people to want to throw an airmail. Some smart and some not. So if anyone knows what a diamond block is or not, when the bag is sitting with the point down on a board, that is a V block, diamond block. That means basically anytime you try to push or go through a bag, come up against it, you basically, in order to go through that, you have to hit it right in the center. If you're a little to the left, a little to the right, you're going to bounce to the left or to the right, and then it gives the opponent the ability to go through that. Anytime you see a bag flat up is when you want to attack a push more so. But this goes vice versa with an airmail. So if a bag is up against the hole, majority of the time you don't want to airmail that because it's an easy pushable bag. This still, I probably would go through the push on that. But anytime there's a bag's length or more, like say it's like that, that's going to entice me to go over, because if I go over and hit that, that is my opponent's bag and he's going to want that bag in the hole, so I'm going to let him push that bag, not me. If it's like this, I'm especially throwing it, because he can, if he wants to push that, he can push that. Once he goes off to the side, there's a lot of other scenarios from there. But yes, this is with a bag's length. I like that a lot. If you go 2 bag lengths, that becomes a harder push for you and your opponent. If I'm not in control of the round, I'm going to play it safe, step out, try to go around that, because if I miss, the bag's going to be, at least on the board, I get 1 point. If I am in control of the round and I'm feeling my airmails, I'm going to go for that. Or you can even go a short airmail. If you don't know what a short airmail is, it's basically not aiming for the hole itself. You're going to throw the bag the same way, the same arc, trajectory, but you're going to want to land a little short anything shorter than, I mean, you don't want to hit that bag, but you want to land about right here because majority of the time it's just going to slide into the hole. I'd consider that still an airmail, even though it's technically sliding and not swishing into the hole. Let's say there's bags on the back. So this makes a cornhole airmail scenario a little more juicy. Say this is both your opponent's bags, and doesn't really matter what your bag is doing, but if you're not feeling like you would normally airmail that bag, but they have one on the back of the hole, I'd consider shooting it, because even if you go long, you're gonna hit them off. Nothing wrong with them going off as long as you're going off, or you going off as long as they're going off with you. And then I don't know if anyone's heard of an N1 airmail shot, but it's one of those things, more lucky than not. Yes, you can plan this, and once you do, throw it. But you're going to want to throw this with a little more, or a little less trajectory, so a little more line drive, less loft on it, and come in hot and try to hit the back of the hole. You're not really trying to hit their bag, because if you hit their bag, you're probably going to aim right and hit their bag and both of you go off. But if you aim for the back of that hole, at least if you're short and you don't hit them, you go in. But if you can hit them, that's that airmail. So I could demonstrate it, but I'm not gonna. But if you hit it hard, that bag goes off, you go in there in the hole. That's an air. All right,
so flat block versus diamond block, proximity to the hole.
Yeah.
When you have an opponent's back on the back, you're kind of adding up all these things in your mind. A clean airmail versus opponent's bag on the back versus I could drag my own bag. They just add up to either I shouldn't shoot it or I should shoot it.
Exactly. Hold on, I gotta hit one.
Now he's committed.
Hello everybody, thanks for coming out. I'm going to touch on a little bit the same stuff that Gino touched on. I'm going to touch on what I consider one of the hardest scenarios in cornhole, and that's when there's a bag right there. We call it a dog shit blocker. If anybody doesn't know, it's a blocker, and it's really bad placed blocker. What are you going to do if the bag ends up there? It was a mistake. Whoever threw it did not intend for the bag to be a foot up from the bottom of the board. They intended on something else. It hung on to the bag too long, threw it too low, it caught the lip of the board. Something happened, but the shooter did not intend for the bag to end up there. So then what do? And I'm so glad that everybody went before me, because everything that was presented today is everything that you can do. I'm not going to really tell you what you should do. You might want to practice what you should do. You'll probably learn what you should do throughout playing. But I'll tell you what the options are on what you can do. If that was just presented to you and now you got to throw against it, you have all of the stuff that was presented. You could step out, try to go around this bag. You could throw one right in front of it. If you want to just back it up, you could try to back it up. Lots of times, if you try to throw a floater over the top, you could airmail. If your airmail's feeling good, you could throw a short airmail right in here. Now, if you throw a short airmail, you're going to want to go high loft. You don't want to go too low, have it come in too hot. It's just going to skip off the back. What else? Cutter. You could throw a cutter up the side to try to cut in around it on either side. Those are the options if you're playing against it. If you're the shooter, then you also have some other options, because you could try to push it. Now, it's a risky throw to try to push it. If you want to push it, you're going to have to come in low and hot, and if you miss side to side, it's probably going to go off the back. But those are some of the options you have when you're faced with a dog shit blocker. I would encourage everyone to kind of set it up and practice. What are you going to do? Because it's awful when you have this situation. Lots of guys are making a yard sale back here and just putting them off the back of the board, trying to figure out what to do to get around that bag.
Good job, Ryan.
All right, thanks.
All right, that's going to conclude our first Cornhole Clinic. I know that was a lot of information, so we're going to continue throughout the tournament. This is called, for our new people, it's called a Switch Holio. So you're going to be paired up with a bunch of different partners. You could have anywhere from a state champ to a pro, and even our competitive level players have a ton of knowledge in bags and shots. So everyone's going to be kind of sharing knowledge throughout the tournament. So thanks everyone for coming. Bye.